And one of the things that I heard a lot about, but one of the most important things that lasted as it has until this day, 50 years later, out of all the impressions that people gave me about listening to the whole affair, was Dr. King's speech. I have a dream. And then when kids, you would see kids in the street reciting that line, then I just said, Dr. King spent perhaps 30 minutes igniting the imagination and exciting people who have been oppressed for a long time, people who thought of things less important than freedom.
But George Collins, did you know when you heard, I have a feeling you did, but did you know when you heard that speech that that was history?
I knew. I tell you what, Anthony, I had the impression that it was history-making before Dr. King appeared. Because when I stayed, I went to Washington the night before, and I got up and I was down at the parade ground early in the morning when all the buses came in and all of that. I had an impression very early on about that gathering. It looked like people would never stop coming. That was the first thing. The other thing was so hot and it was stifling, really. And as a roving reporter, you want to move around and get your people. It took almost 30 minutes to go 15 or 20 feet because the people were that close. And then the weather, the heat really came down and the people began to faint. And this is where the good-naturedness of the crowd also showed. When a person fainted, several people would lift them up and hand them over to several other people, and they would pass them over where there was vacant space and they could get some air. All of those things, even before Dr. King opened his mouth, to me were symbolic of what was going on. And this is something that we are seeing today that we will never see again. And that proved to be a rather correct impression because there have been many marches in Washington, and no march has ever touched the excitement, the emotionalism, and the hope, and the advocacy for peace and joy and promotion of the American dream. That's the first time that had been a gathering that massive that had devoted themselves to addressing those issues. And I haven't seen one since that is or was comparable to that.
Folks, we're not going to take your calls. I want to get these other folks into this conversation.